Hi everyone, it's Margaret here with 60andMe. If you could turn back time, what era would you go to? Now, we did a survey a few months ago, and most women surprisingly said that they wanted to live, they would go back to live in the 1920s, the roaring 20s. And that sounds great, and I think that's, appealing to a lot of people. But let's be a little bit playful and go back even further. Let's think about history, the history of civilizations, and which one kind of appeals to you as a second choice. I mean, your first choice is probably going to be in the 20th century because that's what we know. But if you could go back to prehistoric times, I mean, can you imagine what life must have been like during that time? The development of tools, the birth of civilization, no mirrors. You just had to be, I mean, you were just living in a very fundamental, basic relationship with the world and with each other. Or would it be ancient Mesopotamia? Now, this is like the first real civilizations, the Sumerians and the Babylonians. And that's when you actually started to get some interesting developments in terms of, water management, heating, comfort, just that the whole idea of comfort became more accessible. So ancient Mesopotamia. Or would you go back to ancient Greece? Now, there's a lot of interest recently about the Stoics and the Greek philosophies. Now, it seems like a long time ago, but when I actually sit back and think about the Stoic philosophy, it's very relevant to today. I mean, when they were sort of starting to be philosophers, they had more creature comfort, so they were able to start thinking about the meaning of interaction and relationships, and the Stoic philosophy started to emerge. Heraclitus, and that was the I can't think of the names of all of them now, but these great leaders who were dealing with all kinds of, amazing reality, physical reality, were dealing with the philosophical side. I think that would be a very interesting time to have lived. The next one is ancient India. Now, for those of you who know me, India has a soft spot in my heart. I had a business actually in Seattle years ago called Passion for India, and I sold Indian textiles. It was while I was working at Microsoft, but I had this little shop that I always had wanted to create. So anyway, India. So I visited India quite a bit, and when you go back to India, even today, you're like stepping back into the past, because even though it has become very modernized and very, kind of interesting and technologically advanced, it really is still a very rural, basic, family-orientated culture. And so I mean, for me, I don't know. I've got a couple of options. Ancient India is definitely on my list. How about China? The Han Dynasty in China. Now, this was, I think, an age of great culture, technology, and there's a lot of trade was starting to be developed. So this is where the Silk Road, was developed. So people moved from country to country, collecting spices and things to trade. And well, of course, you already figured this out. I have a very bad cold at the moment, but I'm going to just take a minute and wipe my nose. Hold on. Okay. It's it's just the changing weather, I think. But anywho, here I am. Hope you can understand my voice. But anyway, the Han Dynasty in China. Fascinating time. Now it gets into some other ages here, which I also have interest in, which is, the Vikings in the Nordic countries, the Vikings, and there was this whole interest in, taking over land, accomplishing, growth, and so the Vikings were a very interesting culture. I don't know where women played in a lot of these cultures, to be honest. So I'm kind of skipping over the obvious, like, oh, I wouldn't want to live there because, but it's just a kind of reflect on the time periods that we had choices to go back to. So the Viking time. Now, medieval time is around, it's the Middle Ages, medieval, is one of my favorite times. For whatever reason, I don't know. I just have a fascination with medieval history. And the funny thing is that this weekend in our town, in Switzerland, we're having a medieval festival. So I went there yesterday with my grandkids, and we were walking around the different booths and learning about how they did stuff, how they made clothes, how they knitted wool. I mean, how they made wool, how they, the very basic things that we think about, how they actually accomplished a lifestyle. There was a lot of infighting and territorial fighting, so a lot of armor, weaponry, but how you made and how they did this intricate jewelry and silver, using like I don't even know what the machine is called, but like where you literally burn a fire, put the silver on, and you hammer it and create these beautiful images or designs. And so anyway, the medieval festival was really interesting. Also culturally, from they had the influx of music. Yesterday they were playing harps, and I mean, long gone are harps, but it was so beautiful. And of course, the churches and all the kind of culture that emerged around religion, it was all manifest in that culture of the medieval times. Churches and sacred places of those times are just, well, they're just breathtaking. So that's our friends in the medieval history, and I think that would be probably my second choice. I know it would be rough. I know, I know that there would be a lot of challenges, but I think it would be absolutely fascinating. What about you? Okay, then there's Renaissance Europe. Now, Renaissance Europe is this renewed civilization with cultural interest, lots of art, science, experimentation. The Renaissance was, particularly in Europe, was very powerful, and it just shifted our consciousness from, surviving on the land, surviving day to day, to the more luxurious time wasting or time passing activities like art and culture. The age of exploration is a big one, and that kind of follows Renaissance Europe, which is where we started to say, okay, what's out there? Let's go out into the world. Christopher Columbus, the whole investigation, exploration of the world, and imagine what that was like in those days. Now, when I'm talking about imagine, I'm imagining that you're not going to be, well, that you're going to put yourself where you want to be, like not a peasant, or you want to be in the royalty, or, I would like to be royalty in the Renaissance, because I think that life was still very tough for people in terms of, housing and food and just financial situations. But the age of exploration was a big part of our history as human people. And then, of course, there's the settling in different places and the industrial revolution. Now, that could be a fun time to be alive, too. Imagine driving the first Model T, or, the new technologies and industrial growth that really became popular. Well, not popular, it just emerged during that time because we could do it. We had learned some of the techniques for creating machinery that could do work for us to save time. It was interesting actually going to the medieval festival yesterday and seeing how everything was so manual. Everything was just literally pounding out shapes, stitching, sewing, mixing, very, very powerful. And in the Industrial Revolution, things started to get a bit more, achievable and interesting. Now that leads into the Roaring Twenties. I'm jumping, a huge 100 years here and there, but it's fun. And then, of course, you've got the Roaring Twenties, which is jazz and fashion and cultural developments of the 1920s. Now, of course, along with that came a lot of hardship and a lot of financial challenges during the Depression. But it was like whatever. I mean, in the following years of the Depression, I should say. But during that time, the Roaring Twenties was a time of entertainment and fun and celebration, and I could understand why people love that time in history, because it really was carefree, pretty clothes, pretty music, lovely music, good food, just a lot of fun. So the Roaring Twenties, is that still well, if it's your first choice, go ahead and tell me, but I would love you to choose one of the others in addition to the Roaring Twenties. And if you just absolutely don't want to be anywhere else at all, then that's okay too. Just for fun. World War II era, of course, the significant historical events, lots of drama, lots of suffering, lots of challenges technologically and socially. Don't know anybody that would want to go back to the World War II. Oh, I suppose if you had memories of your family or whatever, and you'd want to, relive what they went through. I suppose that would be a possibility. But then, of course, you've got the 1960s. Now, I think a lot of people like the 1960s, right? Why not? I mean, the 60s is the time of liberation and counterculture and questioning the status quo and doing things on your own terms. But having said that, women were very limited in what they could do, even in the 1960s. And I was actually, for example, listening to a very interesting podcast the other day about the fact that, and you probably know this, but I didn't realize it fully, that women could not have their own checking account without having the signature of their husband or man until 1974. So that's well past the 60s. And I didn't even think about it in the 60s because I guess we were all, if you're in your age 60s now, the 60s was only like 30, 40 years ago. So we were 20 teenagers and maybe didn't think about it, but but it was a pretty tricky time. But anyway, that was the 60s, the World War II era, and then of course the modern world, the 1960s. And I stopped there because I think we're in the next place. We're there, and we're living that now. Maybe this is your favorite time, and I think a lot of people will say that. But I just think it's fascinating to go back in history and look at some of the things that other cultures, other civilizations went through, and maybe even for a day go visit. Maybe that's the way we should look at it. Well, where would you like to go for a day? Not to live forever, just to visit. Okay, everybody. Well, I hope that's been fun for you. My voice actually managed to last all the way through this video. So I hope that you're doing great. I look forward to your comments. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. And please invite others to join our 60andMe community here. Just have them go to 60andme.com/start. And they can join up our newsletter, get all the information on information and articles that we publish, videos I do like this, and just hope that you're doing great. Know that you're loved, respected, and appreciated. Take good care, everybody.